What exactly is bioethics? How can we determine what is really appropriate in this ever-changing arena? We'll talk about that and more in this edition of Life Matters with Brian Johnston, Western Regional Director of the National Right to Life Committee.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, which is a very singular idea that's been echoed throughout history, but was defined and refined by the founding fathers of the United States of America. They said that our lives, each and every human life, is a gift from a creator. They didn't go beyond that. They didn't get into a whole lot of other theology, but they did say that we have a creator. They went beyond that, though, when it came to government, and they said government's got a job, but that job is very limited and very definitive. It's to ensure our right to be alive and all the other rights that emanate from our lives. Human lives are extraordinary things. You are unique. And science has only gone on to underscore that each and every human being is unique, endowed by their creator with that uniqueness. So in today's program, we're going to spend time talking about the right to life, but specifically now about a very interesting turn of events, and that's the coronavirus, the Nova coronavirus. It's actually impacted our history worldwide, and it's something that makes everybody sit up and take note. That's both good and bad. This is an opportunity for us to cherish life, and that's what I see as part of the good aspect of this. People are alarmed. People see their own humanity and how fragile it is, that life is valuable. That's extraordinary. It's hard to get that across a lot of times in a developed Western culture. We get so busy we don't really appreciate the sanctity and value of each and every life, and people are awakening to that. Specifically, they're awakening to the risks to the most vulnerable. And that is part of our message in the right to life. The purpose of having the law protect innocent lives, the purpose in having the government responsible to ensure your right to be alive, is because there's times in your life where you may be vulnerable. We know in the case of abortion, before 1973, the laws said in every state, well, that's a human baby, a vulnerable human baby. You can't take that baby's life. But with the Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton decision, those babies were then open ground for those who wanted to dismiss that life, to declare, oh, well, the mother owns the baby, and the mother can destroy the baby at any time if she wants to. Of course, that was the debate in slavery as well. Can you own another human being? Can you kill another human being that you own? No. And before 1973, that's what the law said about vulnerable human babies. But with Roe v. Wade, that all changed, and people who knew at that time recognized it's not just babies. It isn't just because we like babies and babies are cute. That's why abortion's wrong. Abortion is wrong because that's a vulnerable human being. And soon, if we don't address this, if the right to life is no longer asserted in our nation, soon other vulnerable human beings will be discarded. And they were right. And in many states now, I live in one, California, but many states have embraced the idea of doctor-assisted killing, physician-assisted suicide. It's a form of voluntary euthanasia. Doctors were never killers for 3,000 years. The medical profession swore they would never kill, but now they are. They're killing babies, and they're killing other vulnerable human beings. Back to the coronavirus, though, one of the cool things is that it's caused the whole world to stop. And because this is an unknown virus, and we'll know more later, it's a strange bug, but we know that it'll kill. And in a way that we don't quite understand, so that's caused people to be nervous. And you may even be listening to this in the privacy of your own home or in your car. You're not going to be listening to it in a group because you've been isolated. So this is an extraordinary moment in history. And there's good that has come from this. Let me speak personally on the good. I think the family closeness that has resulted naturally. We homeschooled our kids. So speaking personally, I'm really pleased that this nation, almost by compulsion, has become a nation of homeschoolers. And what's good about that is the very predicate for having any schools, whether it be a public or private school. Those schools are there on behalf of the parent. In loco parentis, it's a parent's responsibility to raise their children. That's a powerful principle. And we've moved away from it. We've sent kids out of our homes, or we're having the television educate them, and then during the week sending them into the arms of others, and then having others fill their minds. And it's still our duty. We have a duty as parents. So that's a phenomenal thing. Families are getting closer, even if it's being forced. There's a lot of good things, and again, I'm speaking personally on that. But I do want to move towards some of my concerns. And those concerns are about how we're addressing this problem. Because we recognize that the elderly are the most vulnerable, people are being encouraged to not visit the elderly, that the elderly should be isolated, that the elderly are susceptible to your germs, so stay away. And there may be some truth to that. I'm not saying there's not, but I see a potential for darker problems. And when we come back, I'll explain some of these problems because we've actually been here before. The coronavirus is new, and it's caused us to want to re-examine it. But we've been in situations that have killed hundreds of thousands and hundreds of thousands of elderly. And yet we didn't do this to the elderly. So I'm going to talk about those situations, how we should have learned from those situations, and how we should learn right now we should be involved with the elderly. And if we can't physically see them, if you can't visit them, what can you do, particularly if you're concerned about their right to life? And I have to tell you, you should be. In a nation now that has legalized doctor-sponsored killing, and that's what we've done in our nation. And you can look at Europe, where doctor-sponsored killing is legal and is promoted by the government. That's happening in many of our states. And intentional medical neglect is actually happening in many of our states. There's a darker aspect to these clouds of the novo virus. When we come back, we'll talk about that, what you can do, how you can be prepared, how you can seize the opportunity now with this danger, but also that you can prepare others because life is at stake. And again, that's the good thing. People are seeing the brevity of life, the sacredness and value even of the most vulnerable lives. That's a good thing. Let's see how we can build on that.
Life Matters continues after this.
You know, you're pretty amazing. The reason I can say that is America's founders said that about you. That's right. They said that every human being is created by a creator and given rights by that creator. Those rights are not given by the government. It's the government's job to protect those rights. And the very first and most important is the right to be alive, the right to life. If you want to be involved in the national effort, go to nrlc.org.
Did you know that California has a law in the books that says you need to protect babies born alive in the course of an abortion? But that law is simply ignored. We need to shine a light on this cover-up of the abortion industry in our state. Go to californiaprolife.org and click on the Light of Day Project. We need the facts about late-term abortion to be examined and made known. We need the government doing its job to protect lives. We need the light of day on this.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
We're back again. We're talking about the coronavirus. And you know what? It may impact our life, not just in the year 2020, but from here on out. How we relate to one another, the nature of how we communicate can be dramatically changed, possibly, by this phenomenon. So I want to look at this and understand it. But I'm also appalled in many ways. And let me tell you why. Do you know that in the flu season of 2018-19, which was last year, as we're recording this, there were 35.5 million cases of the flu just in the United States. 35.5 million cases. There were 500,000 cases of hospitalization because of the flu. 500,000. And of that 500,000, there were actually 34.2 thousand deaths. 34,200 deaths by the flu. That was last year. Now, that's pretty serious, and you have to know this. Most of those deaths were of those who were incapacitated in some way. They were elderly. Their immune system was in some way compromised. The very people that we're caring about regarding the coronavirus, and that's good. I'm saying it's good. Let's pay attention. But why weren't we paying attention then? Huh? Have you thought about that? 34.2 thousand. In the flu season of 2016-2017, worldwide, there were 646,000 deaths from the flu. Deaths. from the flu worldwide. We haven't gotten to that yet from coronavirus, but that's more than 500,000 deaths. In terms of the U.S. alone in 16 and 17, there were 29 million cases of the flu. Of that, there were 500,000, 500,000 hospitalizations, and there were 38,000 deaths in the U.S. alone. 38,000 deaths from the flu in the U.S. in 2016-17, but worldwide, 646,000. Again, most of them were those who were immunocompromised. That means they were older or they had some other underlying illness, and those are the people who are vulnerable. And yes, they're going to be vulnerable now to the coronavirus, but we haven't had a fraction of those deaths. Why weren't we fighting for the elderly then? Think about it. It's kind of bothered me. As you know, if you've listened to our program, I am concerned for the pro-life movement because a lot of people are pro-life and they think the debate is only about babies. And that's a good thing because in one sense, when it comes to abortion, it's about babies. But that isn't the reason abortion is wrong. Because, it kills babies, we like babies. You can go back and there's been studies. If you listen to this on the radio, thank you for listening. We're on at the same time on this local station. We're on various stations throughout the state. But we take a deep dive in what the right to life is. And the right to life isn't about babies. The right to life is actually a statement of legal principle that the duty of the government is to ensure that human lives are protected. That's what the right to life is about, that the lives themselves are protected. And that's one of the few jobs that the government has. In 73, the right to life was removed as a legal principle in our whole nation. And people think it's only about abortion. No, the loss of the right to life has carried great risk. And because of that, it's infected our whole culture. If you don't see the disease in our cultural values, then you're not paying attention. I'd like to remind you that you can go back, if you're listening on podcast, that's great. And if you go to the podcast site, we go in depth each week in a different topic. And if you go to the notes section, you can read about that particular episode, read the notes, and we go into every aspect of the right to life, and there's a lot of them. It's not just about getting diapers for the kids who weren't killed today. Some people think, well, I'll get diapers for the kids that weren't killed, and then I've done my pro-life job. You don't understand this battle if that's the extent of your commitment. This battle is for your heart and mind and for the laws of our nation. And if you don't stand up and recognize who really is at risk, if you don't stand up for those who are vulnerable, and right now, it's not simply babies. There are other vulnerable human beings that are being killed and being talked into suicide, which is unethical, but it's happening. And you can learn about all of those if you go to the notes section at lifematters.life. And this topic we're talking about today, we actually talk about in different ways. We talk about the fact that you're getting older. Some of you know I'm a former commissioner on aging in California. I served on the state's board of nursing home examiners. I served nationally on the National Legal Center board, the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. There are people who are being targeted to be killed. That's the long and short of it. And if you don't recognize that targeting, the violation of their right to life, you won't stand up to protect them. And when you're targeted, there'll be no one to protect you. So it's pretty important. Episode 78 just talks about getting older. You should think about that because you're lucky if you're getting older. Get ready. Prepare to get older because the alternative is you'll die before that. So don't just be smug about that. Prepare for what it means to be getting older and those at risk. In episode 79, we talk about voluntary euthanasia. Very common, especially for Americans. Well, Americans can do whatever they want. And if I want to be dead, well, I'll jump from this building. I'll jump from the Golden Gate. Well, you can't. And it isn't because we want to keep the sidewalks clean or we're tired of fishing bodies out of the San Francisco Bay. It's because to take a human life is wrong. You could change your mind at any moment. And studies have shown of all of those that have jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge, it's amazing, a handful have survived. Every single one of them regretted it the moment they left the railing. Suicide is not the answer. Killing a vulnerable person is not the answer. So that's episode 79. There's several other episodes that impinge on this issue that's facing us now. Episode 33 is those who are vulnerable, being targeted. Episode 39 is nursing home advocacy, and that's what I want to kind of talk about today. Because we're being told with coronavirus, don't go to nursing homes. Now, we're going to hear a clip in a little bit from a friend of mine. Valerie and I have known Joyce Unanks for more than 40 years, a dear friend, and we used to visit nursing homes together in Sonoma County and in other parts of the state. And there's an interview you'll hear in Sacramento when she was visiting her sister. Nursing homes are really important places that most Americans hate going to, and that's a whole phenomenon. But now, with coronavirus, we're even being prohibited from going, and that could be ominous. There are some churches, and I've encouraged this in churches. If they allow us in the future, please encourage your church to get involved and visit those that have no friends or family that visit. A lot of families just don't visit their relatives in nursing homes. It's a little bit scary. I'm hoping that ban will be lifted and that you can visit people in nursing homes again, because they need that involvement. And really, they need to know that someone cares. And I'll be perfectly blunt, the staff needs to know that someone cares, that someone's watching, because they're at great risk. And you'll hear now from Joyce Unanks and I when we were talking about visiting her sister. And you need to know that we have a responsibility towards those who are depressed, those who are dependent. And if you're not taking that responsibility seriously, even that'll be taken from you. And that's what's chilling. I'm concerned that coronavirus may not allow folks to visit. When we come back from the interview with Joyce, I'll talk about what you can do for your loved ones right now. Please don't abandon your loved ones. They're telling us don't visit the elderly in their own homes, in public. Stay away from old people. Don't infect them. But there's a downside to that. We'll talk about how to address it when we come back.
You're listening to Life Matters.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. To find out more on how you can help and be involved right where you are, go to californiaprolife.org. That's californiaprolife.org. We'll tell you how you can get involved in your local community, how you can be effective if you want to be a pro-life speaker. We have training programs and open doors of opportunity for you to speak on a life issue. If you'd like to donate your car or a boat, you can do that at californiaprolife.org. Car Easy makes it easy, and you find that on our website. We get the most of any donation program. Car Easy allows us to get the most out of your car. Maybe you're not getting the trade-in value you wanted. Maybe it's just not running the way it used to. Let your car be used for life. Go to californiaprolife.org and find out what you can do to make a difference. californiaprolife.org.
Be sure to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast with Brian Johnston. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. Join me now as I talk with Joyce Unanks. Over 50% of people in long-term care don't get any visitors.
They don't. More than 50%. Here at this facility,
Yeah.
I don't know of 5 people that get visitors. Maybe on Sundays there's a little bit more, but most of the people are dropped off and they don't come back till they take their family out of here on a stretcher, dead.
Yeah, and that is a tragedy. I know this program is broadcast on Christian stations throughout California. And so if you're a Christian listening, you need to understand something, that there's a culture change, and part of the problem is Christians aren't involved. Christians are not involved in the most important time in people's lives. I know a lot of Christians who love going on missions to Madagascar or some exotic location, and yet right down the street, literally within 100 yards of a church that I've been to, there are several long-term care facilities that the church used to visit. They don't visit there anymore. They don't even get involved. That is a situation where it's literally people's lives are ripe to hear the gospel. So you want to get involved with people's lives and people who are ready, and yet these people are facing their own mortality every day, and that's the best chance to reach them. But the church is too self-absorbed to even care. And so we have a situation. Let's talk about the typical long-term care facility. I know at this one, where your sister's in a room with, there's a total of 3, and all 3 are dependent on care. They have 1 toilet, 1 bathroom, and that's shared with the other room. So there's 6 folks that share 1 toilet.
Yes.
And if that toilet or that sink or that shower goes out, it takes a long time to fix.
And the people don't come to fix it. That sink was plugged up. It looks like there was blood in it all day yesterday. And at 5 o'clock, I finally got maintenance to come and open it up so we could clean the sink out to wash our hands all day.
Yeah. And so we're talking again about people who are dependent, people who need help to get to the toilet, to sit on the toilet. And so what happens in a long-term care facility, there are people who are employed, and at the lowest rung are what are known as CNA, Certified Nurses Assistants. And that sounds great and technical, but to be honest, they're the lowest rung of medical care. It takes a de minimis training. These folks don't need any academic training. So they're not really medical professionals, other than that they care for people.
And they don't know what's wrong with the patients. My sister has seizures, and when she had a seizure, the CNAs had no idea that she has epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
The nurses know it, but they're not allowed to tell the CNAs, the people that are hands-on. They are not allowed in this facility to tell the CNAs what is wrong with the patient.
So you need to realize, and again, this is what I have seen across the board. We now in the state of California and now in several states, the United States, have actually legalized a form of voluntary euthanasia called physician-assisted suicide. But what that is actually saying, you know, this person's depressed, and since they're depressed, we're now free to kill them. We kind of wish they were dead. They're not dead yet. And now, since they kind of wish they're dead, now we can use medicine to kill them. But to me, that's actually a symptom of a deeper issue, and that is of the abandonment. Literally, physician-assisted suicide is the ultimate form of elder abuse. It's the ultimate form of abandonment. And we're looking at a culture, and I have to blame Christians. Christians are supposed to be the salt of the earth. Christians are supposed to be involved. I was thinking about this. Joyce, you and I were talking. Well, what happened in olden times? Well, in olden times, it was the family. But the family now is disengaged. They send elderly people out of their lives, and they go and they have to pay for their boats, and they have to go on their different self-indulgent approaches to life. And we dismiss the people in our own families. They send them to these institutions, and these places, there's a few. I've been in many nursing homes in California. There's a few that are good. But to be honest, there's quite a few that are basically warehouses.
Yes.
And the amount of attention that's needed and the amount of resources that's given, they don't line up. So as I said, if you want to be a missionary, I know it sounds romantic to go far away. Let's go several thousand miles away. There's incredible need right where you are.
Yeah.
Right where you are, there are people being neglected. There are lives literally that are at stake in your neighborhood in these nursing homes because nobody's watching. No one cares.
No one's watching. When you see a patient who is getting out of bed, who shouldn't be getting out of bed and falls, no one is watching that patient because there's not enough CNAs. On one shift of 18 people, sometimes there's one CNA and one nurse to take care of all those people. And the pay for CNA is minimum in this area.
It's really quite alarming, and you need to know about it because you need to take action. So I want to recommend that to you. If you're looking for a place to serve, you're not going to get a lot of thanks, but that isn't why you serve, is it? If it is, then you have the wrong priorities. You serve where you're needed, and you are needed.
Yes.
You are needed. So look for that opportunity. We'll be back after a little bit, but I want to explain in greater depth some of the great dangers and then the things that you can do. But most of all, remember, this is about you and your loved ones. And Joyce is at this facility because her sister's here. But to be honest, there are hundreds and hundreds of facilities like this throughout the state. And a lot of families don't come very often or they feel helpless. And Joyce knows from her experience that the only way to change things is you don't act helpless, you get involved, and you ask for help, and you make sure that person gets help.
That's right. And if you do that, if you speak up, they will react.
That's great. Okay, well, pretty serious stuff. As I said, my great concern is that we won't be able to visit the elderly. We won't be able to visit the most vulnerable out of fear of spreading the coronavirus. And there may be some validity to that concern. I'm not dismissing that. But these people need involvement and care. So I'm going to suggest a couple of things. One is that we use technology. And if you have a loved one in a nursing home, make sure that you're in contact with them and with the nursing home. Joyce and I had a bunch of friends in Sonoma County and now in other parts of the state, where we would visit nursing homes and befriend people who had no family or whose family would never visit them. That actually helped keep them alive. Do you know why? Because the staff realized someone was checking on them. I hate to put it so bluntly, but that will help keep someone alive because the staff is overworked. And it's medical neglect, usually, that causes deaths. In fact, let me be quite specific. Often it's through dehydration As I said, I've been around this a lot. I've studied the need in long-term care facilities, and probably the most important is not just medication, it's actually hydration. And very common, let me tell you why, as you get older, you've already experienced it probably. If you're older, you start to lose your taste buds. That's why when you're a child, you hated spicy food. When you're a young child, the older you got, your taste buds adapted, but really wanted that because it was savory. As we get older still, we start to lose our sense of taste and our sense of thirst. So particularly for any dementia-type illness like Alzheimer's, they forget to drink water. But not just intellectually, they don't have the sensation that they want to drink. Very common in some nursing homes to see men in particular with a ring of white spittle around their mouth because they're so dehydrated. Women less likely because of the cultural habit of women using lipstick and paying attention to their lips, but that's one of the later signs of dehydration. Dehydration is very, very common. I'd say dehydration is so common in the United States, not just in long-term care facilities. We don't drink enough water. We mistake our sense of thirst for hunger. And read up on that. It's really true. So what happens is you get older, if you're not getting the proper hydration, your organs become desiccated. Literally 70% of your body is water. And that's not just your blood, it's your cells at every level and your organs. Water and blood is necessary to flush your cells, to keep them vibrant. Your cells actually have slough as they do their work. They have to poop, if you will. And so you got to be flushing your cells. Stay hydrated, no matter your age. Very common, though, if you are in touch with an elderly relative over 65, you can't visit them, FaceTime them. That's right, FaceTime them, especially if they're in the nursing home. If the staff knows that grandma and grandpa have a smartphone and they get calls and visits, and also introduce yourself to the staff through the smartphone. If you can't come to the facility, use technology to go there. Make it known that you care and you're watching. And then in a polite way, I suggest not just asking grandma and grandpa, but talk to the staff. Get to know the nurses aides, the certified nursing assistants. Get to know them. Be relational. It'll actually help. They'll want to help your grandma or grandpa. Sadly now, if you are not a legal guardian or have a familial relationship, I have seen where they don't want you involved. And that can be chilling. That's why, unless this changes, when churches would be involved and would befriend the lonely, that was very powerful because now they had an advocate. If that's no longer involved, those people are at great risk. So you need to know that. I've talked to family members that just don't see their loved ones. Please don't let that happen. So the coronavirus is a great opportunity. I think it's kind of amazing, but please see the threat that's there as well and be ready to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves.
Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life.